Hey, amazing parents, how are you doing today? Awesome, awesome. So I thought I would start to share questions that have been asked in the past. And we had a few questions that were being asked. I asked a question actually, and I said, what are the communication problems that you have, or the communication challenges that you have with your teens? And a lot of parents wrote down questions, or, asked questions. So I'm going to be answering them during our live videos. I'm going to be answering these questions because putting them in a post, there's a lot to say. So I think I prefer actually sharing it on, as a live video. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and for everyone that's going to join or watch the replay. I appreciate you guys. So the question here that I had from a parent says, how do I talk to my teenagers about cutting back on social media usage? Now, this is a question that is very, very common amongst parents. And it's a very tricky area to talk about because social media and our teenagers and our tweens, to be honest, that's what they know. They were born into this social media era. It's part of who they are. It's how they identify a lot with themselves or entertain themselves. So social media is such a big deal to them. And one of the biggest advices that I give parents about how to communicate about social media use is that I always say it's important that we establish for ourselves what is too much usage of social media. Because what happens with how we communicate, the mistakes we make when we communicate to our children is that we speak quite vaguely. We say, oh, you guys are using so much, you're spending so much of your time on social media. Now, what is so much to us and what is so much to them? I think that's what we need to establish. I'll never forget a TEDx talk that I heard some years ago. And the speaker said that as parents, today's parents, we are immigrants to the digital world. We didn't grow up with the digital things. We didn't grow up with social media. So being adults and then being being introduced to social media is a new thing for all of us as parents. So we are digital immigrants, is what the speaker said. And I thought, wow, that does make a lot of sense. But our children were born into the digital era. They were born into the social media era. That's what they know. So addressing them to say that the usage of social media is too much, we need to be very intentional with how we word it. We need to be very intentional with how we say it. If we say it from a negative point of view where we're accusing them in that way, they wouldn't relate to what we're saying and they wouldn't hear what we're saying. So we've got to speak to them in such a way that we know that we are not accusing them. We are not passing judgment on them, because our time, when we say you're overusing social media, what is our time? What is overusing social media? Quantify it. Quantify it. And then I would say, ask your teenagers, when is social media usage? When do you go overboard on social media usage? You'd be surprised the difference they would say. Someone like me, I would say maybe, 2-3 hours a day on social media. That's already maximum for me. But our children may not see it the same way. So it's important that we hear from them what is too much for them. What is too much for them? And that's just one area of the question that we need to ask. What is too much for them? And then we can compare notes. So let's put that part aside. The next thing we need to think about before we address our children is, what are the specific things our children need to be doing at home? Routines are very important for our children. Structure is very important. Consistent structure is very important. Have we laid those principles at home? Do our children know what they're meant to be doing after school? The chores they're supposed to be doing? Their homework they're supposed to be finishing up and wrapping up, and all. Do they know all these things that they're supposed to be doing? Because that is something that we need to make our children aware of. And when I say make them aware of it, it's part of a routine for the home, in our homes. And when our children know what to expect and know what to do, I'm not saying they're going to do it all the time, but when they know that there's this routine of things to do, then The question now for us is, have they done those things? Now, if your child has done her home chores, she's done her homework, she's done everything she needs to do around the house, and then she's going on social media, that won't be a time where we then tell them, you're spending too much time on social media. They've done everything that they need to do at home. So again, we have to look at the bigger picture in terms of addressing this issue of social media. What is too much? We need to define it, make it very clear. Number two, what are the other things apart from social media that our children are supposed to be doing at home? We need to have that clear as well. In that part, there's another sub part to it, because as your teenagers get older, they are controlling more of their time. They're planning their time. They're using their time. They're kind of organizing their time. Now, in those kind of cases with older teenagers, it's about having conversations with them. How is it going? How is managing your time going? Are you able to keep up with your work? How is that going? Are you finding it challenging? Now, if your children are finding it challenging, they can share in those moments. Yes, I'm finding it challenging. I don't seem to get enough sleep, or I don't seem to get enough, I'm not able to finish up my work on time. Then you can suggest those reducing their social media time, because you're using that conversation as a solution to the challenges that they've already shared with you. Does that make sense? So it all depends on the conversations we're going. If we come at our teenagers and say, you're using too much of social media time, you need to cut it out, you're going to do this, it's going to do this, it's going to do that to you, it's going to affect you, then it's going to go in one ear and fly out from the other. So we need to present it in such a way that it's solving a problem. It's solving a challenge that they're going through. That's the way we need to bring that conversation into play. So it takes a lot of intentionality. It's not just a conversation we just blab out and just say anywhere and say anyhow. If we say it, the point we're trying to make, we will lose the points that we are trying to make. So that is something I thought I would share with answer to the question that the parent asked. And also, if you also have that as well, just to understand that there's a process to it. Their age, your children's ages, they matter. The routines they have at home matters in this conversation. The challenges that they are facing when older teens, the questions you're asking your older teenagers, and then bringing that conversation as a solution provider really, really does help. So I would say, in talking to your children about social media, let's have the conversation. What is too much to you? What is too much to them? And then let's negotiate. Let's kind of talk it out. Don't approach the topic in a negative way. Don't approach the topic of social media in a negative way. You lose the attention of your children by approaching it in a negative way. Use it as a solution. So you're asking them, how are you doing? How are you coping? Are you on top of your schoolwork? How are all these things fitting together? When they then share what it is that they're facing, you can use their time on social media and say, why don't you try? You can try. This is my suggestion. You can try cutting down on your social media time. How much do you spend on social media at the moment? They tell you. You share with them. I have this, on my phone, I can tell how long I've spent on different apps. So a lot of times, this is one of the things I do. So a lot of times I would just come to my phone in the evenings and I'll say, oh my word, I spent 2 hours on Instagram. What was I doing on Instagram? So I would question myself out loud, just so that it becomes something that they can do as well. Because we all have their apps on their things on our phones that tell us how long we've spent on in an app and something. So I share my own observations. I share it out loud. Oh my, what? I spent that time? What was I doing? Oh, I need to check. I need to make sure that I'm not doing that tomorrow. So I would correct myself and I would talk to myself out loud so that they can hear me. It's very intentional. It's very, very intentional. So I do that so that is something that they can be conscious about doing as well. And when my daughter comes and says, oh, you know what? I don't think I was able to finish my homework. I did all this and I couldn't finish my work. And I say, I don't talk right there and then. I say, oh wow, that's happened to me. And I was just looking at my time on the internet. So I would come back to me. I would come back to my own experience. And you've got to be very tactical, especially when you're speaking to older teenagers. You can't just go at them, oh, you're spending too much time on social media. No. You want your points to make sense. And because you want your point to make sense, it's so important that you say it very intentionally. And you plan it, really. I tell this to parents and I say, sometimes you've got to actually plan what you tell your teenagers. And parents will tell me, oh, but that's too much effort to put in. And I tell them, well, if you want your teenagers to get your points, if you want your teenagers to really value your opinions, then the effort is worth it. The effort is really, really worth it. Parenting Coach Sam, yes, it's modeling is key. Yes, I have found that it works a lot for me. I have found out that it works a lot for me. So I try to do that. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect in it. And I don't aim to be perfect. But I'm very conscious of using myself as an example. And because when we use ourselves as an example, it shows that we're not passing judgment on them. Yeah, it shows that we're not passing judgment on them. So how to talk to your children regarding their overuse of social media, plan it. Look at all these concepts that we've spoken about, these principles, these parts that we've talked about. Look at it and say, okay, where does it fit for me? Okay, where does it fit for me? Okay, let me read your question. Jay Davis says, what do you say to the teen who says, I'm not on the internet too much? They can't quantify what is too much. The question is, and I love that point that you've made, Jay Davis, because what is too much for us as well as parents? What is too much? Because there will be a discrepancy between what we consider too much and what they consider too much. There's going to be a difference. We're talking about it. These are two generations talking about the same thing. There will be a difference. So let our teenagers let's find out from our teenagers what is too much for them and what is too much for us. And then let's talk about it. Okay, let's talk about it, because that is key. A lot of times they don't really think of the amount of hours they're spending on it, but go back to things that they're not able to, like say they've not finished their homework on time or they didn't get enough sleep. Use that angle in trying to now talk about, why don't we cut down a little bit, even if it's half an hour, cut down a little bit on our internet time. That would probably give you more time to do your homework. Why don't you try that? You've got to use style, as I say, use style in approaching the topic. So suggest to them about cutting it, even if it's half an hour time, that they can cut it down. Yeah. Then I love that some of the same, I love that some of the same tips I give to toddler parents, I can modify for parents of teens, of course. Of course, village life parenting, of course. It's just about the whole communication. It's how we approach these topics. And I know that these are very tricky areas, especially social media, the internet. You know, we have a dilemma as parents where we're trying to get our children to value more of their time, to use their time in a more appropriate way. Our teenagers, on the other hand, are thinking, I've got it sorted. I know all this stuff. It's not affecting me. So it's about coming then to talk about it. Yes. And what is enough time to? Yes, it's a lovely opportunity to negotiate with them without confrontations. Yes, Parenting Coach Sam, exactly. It's that approaching these topics, these difficult conversations we want to have. It's about approaching them without confrontation. That's the key. And I'm not promising you that they're going to get it right the first time. They may not get it right the first time. They may not even hear you the first time. But it's that consistently doing it with patience, consistently doing it with a non-judgmental tone. That's what gets them. They will learn. I love this question. Let me see. So Kingdom Bound 08 says, help me dealing with my 16-year-old who doesn't want to do anything with school. I'm going to share something to you now about school. So my 15-year-old daughter, a lot of times she will come up with things like, why are we doing this subject in school? What is it going to do for me? What is it? I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to use all this stuff. What is the point of this subject? And they're very passionate about these things. When they see that they can't, what the school system is doing right now, it's not help, or they feel that it's not going to be relevant for them. And this is what I will share, Kingdom Bound 08, to your 16-year-old. Your 16-year-old, this is what I tell my 15-year-old. I say, you know what? I know school at this moment may not seem very relevant. You might think that a lot of things that they're teaching you right now, you're not going to use them. I mean, there are lots of maths principles that they're using. They're not going to use it after school. But what I told my daughter was, I told her, you see, you may not use these things later on after school. But guess what? The process of you learning is what is the key, is what is the lifetime skill. The fact that you're going to learn something, whether it's going to be relevant in the future or not, the fact that you're able to learn it, the fact that you're able to learn the principles, the fact that you're able to then write it out in a test or in an essay or something, that process is something you're still going to need in the future. You're going to have projects in the future. Even if you have your own business, you're going to have contracts that you need to read. There's going to be communications going around that you would need to be involved in when you become an adult. These things that we're learning in school now, one way or the other, they will help us. School is not a waste of time. That's what I would say to your 16-year-old son. A lot of times, sometimes we can make the mistake of defending school. Oh, this, you've got to go to school. It's compulsory. You've got to go to school. Yes, they've got to go to school, but give them more of something to look forward to. I told my daughter, I said, yes, I know you may not need these subjects in the future. I hear you. I hear you. You may not need it, but there's something about the process of learning that is going to help you. And before you know it, you're 16. Before you know it, you're done. You're going to be done with high school very soon. You don't have too much longer to go. You've come this far from all the way from kindergarten up to now. You've only got a shorter time now to finish up with school. So it's more of encouraging them with their schoolwork. Sometimes it's not easy. I must admit to you, sometimes it's not easy, but just keep on encouraging them and don't dismiss what they're saying. That's really, really key. Don't dismiss what they're saying. Don't judge them for what they're saying. They're saying it from a point of view that they feel is valid. So it's important that we validate their feelings, but then give them just some hope. Give them some hope about the rest of the time in school. That not giving up mentality, that not giving up skill, that they're going to just do it, is a skill they're going to need in the future. So encourage them to just keep going. I know it's hard for you, son. I know you don't see the point for school, son, but I'm going to encourage you to keep going. You've only got this time left. I'm going to encourage you to keep going. Don't give up. Don't give up. So that will be a communication to communicate. Kingdom Bound 08. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, that will be a kind of communication that will be a way to deal with that with your 16-year-old. Okay. It's the way you state things. You are so calm and approachable. Teens don't feel so defensive. Yes, when you approach them with good vibes. Exactly. And honestly, that is the key. That is the key. I found it. It works for me and my teenagers. And it works for other teenagers that I talk to. Yes, Kingdom Bound says, I'm an encourager. That's what I keep doing. Awesome. And don't give up. That's the key. Don't give up. They're listening. The seeds are being planted. They are listening. I tell you, teenagers are listening. They're listening to us. But it's that using that encouraging approach, that calm approach, really, really does help teenagers. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Brennell. Yeah, thank you. As much as they hate it, they will be, this is parenting coach that I'm saying, as much as they hate it, there will be some areas they like too. Exactly. We can leverage those and help them learn how to manage dealing with the things they don't like, not just in school, but also in life. Yes, absolutely. And I tell them as well that in the future, there are going to be things that they don't like about some systems and some projects and some things they're doing, but it's about making it work for them. So yeah, dealing with things they don't like and dealing with things they like. We're not going to always have things that we like on on the stage of life. We're going to have to navigate through things that we don't like as well. So again, these are things that we can talk to them about, and it encourages them and it teaches them as well. We're preparing them for adulthood, so it's important that they experience things that they don't like and experience things that they like. That is just life. That is what life is all about. So yes, thank you so much, guys. Thank you very, very much.